Good morning. Woke up real early on a Saturday, and today I'm gonna get started on kind of like a bucket list of things I need to do. The first thing I need to do is get an oil change. So it's been about 4,700 miles, probably hard driven miles, so might as well get that out of the way. Hopefully today my exhaust flange gasket comes in today, so I can install that. We'll attempt to try the brake fluid and change that out. Definitely want to rotate the tires. Let me see what else did I want to do. Can't remember offhand, but oh yeah, I wanted to take this front bumper off and see if I could replace this AEM intake with the stock intake over there. So just, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So the first thing when you want to jack up the NC MX-5, there's a little divot right there. So I'm going to go ahead and lift up the front. Make sure you chock the back wheels as well. For jacking up the rear of the car, I'm using, I think they call it the trailing arm. I don't really like jacking by the differential, although they say you can do it. So I'm going to go ahead and lift the back up. Well, it looks like I used the wrong divot in the front and ended up cracking my cover. So don't do it like I did. The proper way, the proper one you want to use is that one right there. So I'm going to go ahead and put some metal tape so I don't forget that in the future. So I'm currently draining the oil. There's probably hundreds of YouTube videos on how to drain the oil in the NC Miata, so I'm not going to go ahead and get too deep, but essentially the oil filter was right there. I went with the Super Tech. It was highly rated, even though it's one of the cheapest ones you can buy. It got good ratings, so I went ahead and tried it out. I plan on doing regular oil changes at 5,000 miles, so I'm not too concerned about the brand of oil filter as long as it does a good job filtering. It is in a nasty spot because if you look, you have to stick your hand under, up and under, which makes it very difficult. And then the drain bolt, there's a little hole right there, a little access hole. You can see the oil dripping out. So it's currently doing that. And now I'm going to get started on the brakes. So to prep, I just have an area because brake fluid does drip and it is corrosive to paint. So taking my precautions here, trying to protect as much as I can. I'm going to run the bottle empty because less chance of a mess. And I'll just keep a really good eye on this, but you can see the fluid is pretty nasty in here. Yeah, look at that. Bad. So, needs to be changed. So, I'll start working on that. Make sure you tighten the bolt to 23 to 30 foot-pounds, so I'm doing 26 foot-pounds. Okay, so the bolt has been torqued. Now it is time to put some fresh oil. I'm going with 0W20 Pennzoil Platinum. I'll be honest, I only bought it because there was a mail-in rebate. Cool hack is when you pour it like this. That way it pours smoother. So let me work on. So now the way I flush my brakes is I went ahead and bought one of these, which will extract some of the brake fluid. And you never want to go beyond the low mark, especially on these Mazdas, because they share the fluid with the master cylinder. I think that's what they say. So as long as you don't let it go below low, you will not introduce air in the system. And for this, what I do is I always extract the fluid and put it in here. You always want the other end of that hose in the fluid, and when you're bleeding it, you want this to be at the highest point, so air always goes up. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some brake fluid, some new fresh brake fluid back up. I'm going to overfill it actually, and then I'm going to pressurize the bleeder, and I'm going to make my way to the furthest caliper bleeder, which is the passenger rear, and then I'm going to do driver rear, and then I'm going to do passenger front, and then driver front. Now normally you would need an 8mm wrench, but I'm kind of improvising here, and it seems to be working. So as you can see, the bleeder is higher. I'm sorry, the bottle is higher. And Just you always got to keep checking that master cylinder to make sure it doesn't run dry. Okay, once you notice that it's towards that low mark, the next step, I usually run about 13 psi when I'm bleeding brakes. You always want to loosen it from here so you don't make a mess, because that is under pressure. We don't need brake fluid spattering everywhere. And this is the aftermath of the fluid. This is what came out. It's not terrible. I've seen worse, but I'm glad I did it. Okay, now that the brakes have been bled, the next step is going to be removing the diffuser. Looks like we have some zip ties here, some bolts down there, and eventually I'm going to remove the exhaust. And just like that, the exhaust is off. Zip ties have been removed, and this is a look at the original diffuser that was on it. This is what we have here. One day I want to get a eBay diffuser and just get something to cover that hole up. So this is the plan. Not sure if it's going to work, but my goal is to jack the exhaust pipe up and then slide these. You can see right there. Slide 4 of those under the exhaust hangers up there. And the muffler is on. I still need I'm missing 2 of the bolts. The old exhaust that someone generously donated had one of the nuts, so I'm gonna go ahead. So I screwed it on just so it can hold together. But yeah, it looks pretty ugly from this view, but I'd rather look at this than the diffuser, to be honest. So, and the new exhaust, well, used exhaust has been fully mounted. I'm expecting the gasket to arrive today by Amazon, so I'll just go ahead and bolt that up. I went to Lowe's and bought 2 metric nuts. The M1, I think it's M10, and it's 1.25 as the thread, so it's a fine thread. But I definitely enjoy this look much better than the single exit exhaust. So it's much quieter. Not sure if I'm still getting used to it, but it sounds kind of like my Mazda 6, so it doesn't really have that grunt anymore. But as far as power, I do feel it's not as powerful, but considering I'm going to be using this as a daily driver, this is probably the best route to go. Also to keep the value of the car up. So I'm going to give it a couple of revs.